I recently had to experience something that scarred me for life. But what I did after was even crazier. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. I woke up to the chill of Christmas Eve and the smell of stale coffee drifting from the kitchen. My phone lit up with a message from Diane, my boyfriend Mark's mother, telling him to arrive for holiday dinner with the kids, but to leave me behind. No greeting, no apology, just a hard-edged reminder that I wasn't welcome in her grand mahogany dining room. I stared at the screen, feeling each word settle like sleet against my ribs. Mark shuffled in, nodding his tie, pretending nothing was wrong. When I asked why he never challenged his mother's exclusion, he sighed that she was set in her ways. The phrase felt like duct tape over a fresh wound. I helped our boys zip their puffy coats and watched them buzz about Grandma's legendary candy cane cookies. As their laughter echoed down the hall, something inside me snapped and then blazed to life. I refused to waste another Christmas swallowing secondhand dignity. Instead of melting into self-pity, I opened my laptop and typed 3 defiant words: community holiday dinner. My plan was simple: feed everyone Diane wouldn't. Within minutes, I was calling Chef Marisol, the culinary genius Diane loved to brag about hiring for her charity galas. When Marisol heard my voice, she assumed the request was for Diane again. "Not this year," I said, and explained how I wanted a neighborhood feast. No door kept shut. She agreed on the spot. Next, I rang Pastor Jenkins, whose newly renovated fellowship hall sat empty after the church's own celebration the night before. He said the key was under the welcome mat and told me blessings travel fastest when we share them. That blessing felt like rocket fuel. I spent the rest of the morning racing between tasks, my anger turning into raw momentum. I emailed digital invitations to every neighbor, single parent, grad student, and lonely-looking name on my contacts list. I hand-delivered quick notes to houses where porch swings creaked without Christmas lights. The invitation read, "Come hungry, come casual, bring an unloved ornament for the community tree." A florist friend who owed me a favor dropped off towering poinsettias that made the fellowship hall glow crimson. Marisol texted a dream menu: maple glazed ham, vegan Wellington, cinnamon roasted carrots, and, at my spite-tinted request, bourbon pecan pie, Diane's precious signature dessert. I grinned like a kid setting up a secret clubhouse. Around noon, my phone pinged again. Mark sounded harried. Diane's private club had promised her a show-stopping dessert, but their pastry chef had quit. She wanted one of my pies delivered as a peace offering. The audacity made my jaw tighten. A tiny voice of guilt whispered that sharing dessert was the season's spirit, yet louder voices recalled Diane calling me the +1 who forgot her place, right over last year's turkey. I told Mark I was busy and hung up. Was that petty? Probably. But petty can be profoundly therapeutic when you've been politely erased. By late afternoon, the fellowship hall throbbed with warmth. Strings of white lights zigzagged across exposed beams while holiday music floated over the buzz of strangers turning into friends. I dressed the boys in elf aprons. They raced between tables, refilling cider like pint-sized waiters. Whenever conversation lulled, I asked a newcomer where childhood holidays had taken them, and stories bloomed like poinsettias. Every few hundred words I flicked back to a childhood flash of Grandma Lou's kitchen. The buttery smell of nutmeg cookies, her silver bangles clinking as she pressed dough. Those memories reminded me why gatherings matter. When the first platter emptied, Mark burst through the door holding his coat in defeat. Diane's dinner had imploded. Without Marisol, her hired replacement scorched the main course, guests drifted away, and the house buzzed with whispers about the absent girlfriend whose cooking they suddenly craved. Mark surveyed the fellowship hall, eyes wide at the transformation. "You did all this today?" he asked, voice thick with awe and something that sounded like regret. I could have basked in vindication, but there were still bowls to refill. I pressed a serving spoon into his hand and said, "Help or step aside." He slipped on an apron and chose help. A hush swept the room when Diane herself arrived, draped in fox-trimmed confidence that was fraying at the edges. She scanned the open buffet, daring anyone to deny her entry. I met her gaze without blinking. She opened her mouth to claim a slice of veneer hospitality, but before words could sharpen, a little girl from my son's kindergarten class ran up and handed her a glitter-glued snowflake ornament. Diane's painted nails trembled as she accepted it. In that fragile moment, everyone saw the truth. Exclusion had left her starving in ways no catered feast could fill. She turned to me, voice brittle, and muttered that the boys should eat with family. I nodded toward the bustling tables where neighbors laughed with strangers. "Everyone here is family tonight," I said. Around us, dishes clinked and children squealed at the bubble machine I'd borrowed from the daycare. Marisol emerged from the kitchen, lifting the bourbon pecan pie like a victory flag. The rich scent floated between us. Diane's eyes latched onto it, stunned. She whispered, "That recipe is mine." I smiled softly. "Then consider this a gift one mother passes to another." Crossing the room, I placed the pie in the very center of the buffet, daring her to slice it or walk away hungry. Hours later, the fellowship hall still pulsed with life. An elderly widower told me it was his first Christmas around people since his wife passed. A travel nurse student said my invitation beat microwaving ramen in a dorm. Somewhere in the corner, Pastor Jenkins strummed an off-key guitar while toddlers twirled in circles. Mark hovered near me, finally seeing the quiet current of strength he'd ignored. He murmured that he was sorry for letting tradition outrank respect. Fury had cooled into clarity. "Respect is a verb, not a thought," I replied, and he nodded, sleeve brushing mine in silent promise. Diane sat alone at a side table, spoon idling in melting ice cream. Her shoulders seemed smaller without a throne to prop them. She watched our boys giggle while dusting each other with faux snow confetti, and her face flickered with something like envy. The moment felt like poetic balance. For once she was the outsider scanning a closed circle she couldn't breach. I almost pitied her, but memory of countless snubs stiffened my spine. Sometimes empathy means letting someone taste the dish they served you. Near midnight, I tapped a glass and thanked everyone for proving a table can stretch as wide as hearts allow. I lifted the last bourbon pecan slice, set it beneath the glittering tree, and slipped Diane's gifted snowflake on top. The pie's caramel sheen reflected colored lights, turning it into a shimmering symbol of reclaimed tradition. I looked out at the diverse crowd, aging neighbors, single moms, college kids, the shy mail carrier, and felt 10 feet tall. Then I turned to Diane and offered her the serving knife. Her lips parted, but pride chained them shut. She shook her head and rose to leave. That tiny refusal wasn't victory for her. It was surrender. As guests trickled into the night air, they hugged me and promised this would become our town's new annual gathering. I lingered amid empty platters and cooling cider urns, letting gratitude settle where fury once fumed. Mark stacked chairs in silence before joining me under the fairy lights. He asked if there was room at my side for someone ready to change. I told him actions write invitations more than words. He squeezed my hand and started sweeping the floor. Finally, only the tree and I remained. I traced the snowflake's jagged edges resting on the pie plate. It was fragile, yet bold, like any boundary worth defending. Speaking softly, I said, "No one decides where I belong." The fellowship hall echoed back, and the echo felt like a promise carved in gingerbread and steel. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.